One of the things I love to question they do about it was, when you was here, director of football, how comes we never got these Brazilian boys that Chelsea find?
Estêvão being the latest one, well, last year, but comes in now.
He's only 18, but already, Estêvão Willian carries a nickname that feels impossible to live up to. Messinho. From Franca's dusty streets to the bright lights of Stamford Bridge, he's been called Brazil's new diamond.
Let's talk about Estêvão.
I mean, yeah, this guy, I've watched clips of him when he was in Brazil and was really impressed. He's got a huge reputation over there. He's the next one in line to light up the stage, you know, the world stage.
The one destined to shine where others faded. Signed by Nike at just 10 years old, an early endorsement that marked him as a genuine prodigy. At Palmeiras, he wasn't just another academy wonder, he was the wonder. Hat-tricks in finals, trophies at every youth level, and when he made his debut at 16, he didn't look nervous, he looked inevitable. Every touch, every glance carried the calm of someone who's already seen the future and knows it belongs to him. He doesn't celebrate like a boy living his dream. He celebrates like someone fulfilling destiny. Because this is just the beginning of the story of the boy they called Messinho, and the man who might just prove that the name fits. This is Estêvão Willian. Before we talk about how he's becoming Stamford Bridge's new hero, we need to take you back to where it all began. Estêvão Willian Almeida de Oliveira Gonçalves, born on the 24th of April 2007 in Franca, São Paulo, a small-town boy with a ball at his feet and a dream too big for his neighborhood. At just 10 years old, while most kids were worrying about homework, Estêvão signed a contract with Nike, becoming the youngest Brazilian ever to do so. Even at that age, the whispers began. He moves like Messi. Brazil called him Messinho, Little Messi. He started his youth career at Cruzeiro in 2017. There, coaches remember a boy who didn't just train, he studied the ball. Every touch had purpose, every feint a lesson learned. Then came Palmeiras, the move that changed everything. May 6th, 2021, a date that marked within months, Estêvão was already the heartbeat of every youth team he played for. 2022 became his breakthrough year. He helped Palmeiras' U15, U17, and U20 sweeps every competition in sight. The Campeonato Paulista, the Copa do Brasil Sub-17, and the Campeonato Brasileiro Sub-17. And when the finals came, he didn't just play, he performed. October 2023, the final of the Brasileiro Sub-17. Sao Paulo versus Palmeiras. The pressure? Immense. But the 16-year-old kid from Franca scored all 3 goals, leading his team to a 3-0 victory. That night, Brazil realized it wasn't just talent, it was destiny. Just 2 months later, he made his professional debut, December 7th, 2023, against Cruzeiro, the very club that discovered him. He came on in the 78th minute, with Palmeiras needing a result to seal the Serie A title. When the final whistle blew, Palmeiras were champions, and a new chapter of Brazilian football had quietly begun. At 16 years and 8 months, he was Palmeiras' 4th youngest debutant ever. But more importantly, he looked like he belonged. 2024 arrived, and with it, the Copinha. Estêvão didn't just shine, he glowed. And then came his bittersweet farewell. July 4th, 2025, FIFA Club World Cup quarter-final. Palmeiras versus Chelsea, the very club waiting to make him their own. He scored the equalizer against his future team, a poetic ending to his Brazilian story. When the final whistle blew, Palmeiras were eliminated. But for Estêvão, a new world awaited, London. And as the plane lifted from Sao Paulo, Brazil's Messinho was about to face a question even he couldn't answer yet. Could a boy raised on flair survive in the cold logic of the Premier League? He doesn't just dribble, he dismantles. Every step, every shoulder drop, every sudden change of rhythm, it's all calculated chaos. That's Estêvão Willian. They call him Messinho not because he copies Messi's movements, but because his football speaks the same language. The language of control, balance, and silent destruction. He's reading defenders like a chess player, 2 moves ahead. When Estêvão cuts inside, he doesn't need space, he creates it. In tight corridors where logic says to pass, he dribbles. and when defenders collapse toward him, he passes through them like smoke. His secret? Tempo. He doesn't rush, he invites. He draws his marker close, almost daring them before slicing through. But there's more than flair. Estêvão plays with structure, rare for a Brazilian teenager. Under Palmeiras' system, he learned positional play, how to move between the half spaces, how to overload the left wing, how to drift centrally and link play like an inverted 10. At Chelsea, that's what caught the analyst's eyes. He doesn't just hug the touchline, he manipulates the geometry of the pitch. Left-footed, sharp, and unpredictable, he thrives in transitions. When Chelsea counter, he's already 10 yards ahead mentally. He slows the run, waits for the chaos to settle, then strikes. In his first few Premier League appearances, analysts noticed something. Estêvão wasn't overwhelmed by the league's speed. He slowed it down. The mark of a great player isn't how fast they move, it's how they control the game's tempo around them. That night against Liverpool, 95th minute, 2-1, a single touch, a half glance, and a calm finish that silenced Anfield echoes at Stamford Bridge. The Athletic called it a stunning late winner, but for those who truly watched, it was more than a goal. It was a statement. He's not trying to be Messi. He's proving that Chelsea, and maybe the world, has space for a new kind of left-footed genius. Every star has a night when the world first listens. For Estêvão Willian, this was it. October 4th, 2025, Chelsea versus Liverpool. Champions versus challengers. The Bridge electric. And on the bench, an 18-year-old watching, waiting, as history called his name. He entered the pitch in the 72nd minute. The stage wasn't just big, it was boiling. But then came the calm, the rhythm, the Brazilian heartbeat. From his first touch, the tempo changed. No fear, no hesitation, just silk. He glided between defenders, linked with Enzo Fernandez, drew fouls in dangerous zones. But destiny doesn't whisper, it roars. 95th minute, Marc Cucurella bombs forward, a 1-2 with Enzo, cross comes low, skipping across the box, and arriving, almost like he'd been waiting all his life for this pass, is Estêvão. One touch to set, one to finish. The ball kissed the net. Stamford Bridge shook. And in that chaos, the noise, the blue flares, the disbelief, a calm teenager raised his hands, eyes closed. No wild celebration, no ego. Just a quiet moment between him and destiny. The Athletic called it a stunning late winner, but the fans called it something else. The beginning. That goal didn't just earn Chelsea 3 points, it earned Estêvão a place in their hearts, because it wasn't about technique or power or luck, it was composure. In the dying seconds against the reigning champions, a boy from Franca looked at chaos and smiled. That night, a nickname became a prophecy. Messinho had arrived, and the Premier League had just witnessed the birth of something terrifyingly familiar, yet completely new. In football, comparisons are both compliments and cages, and few names carry as much weight as Messi. They called him Messinho before he even had a driver's license, not because he wanted it, but because his game demanded it. The low center of gravity, the hypnotic dribble, the left foot that caresses the ball like it's alive. But look closer and you'll see. Estêvão isn't a copy, he's a continuation. Messi built his legend through precision and patience. Neymar, through chaos and flair. Estêvão exists somewhere between the two. He carries Messi's balance and Neymar's audacity. He thinks like a European but plays like a Brazilian. When Messi dribbled, the world held its breath. When Neymar danced, defenders froze. When Estêvão moves, defenders disappear. At Palmeiras, they said his feet were too quick for the camera. At Chelsea, they say his mind is too quick for defenders. Every great Brazilian carries a story of contrast, joy and pressure, freedom and expectation. From Pelé's purity to Ronaldinho's poetry, from Neymar's rebellion to Vinicius's resilience. Now, the torch burns in Estêvão's hands. He doesn't dribble for applause. He dribbles to prove a point. that Brazil's street soul can survive Europe's tactical machine. And while Messi spent his life chasing perfection, Estêvão seems to be chasing something else entirely, belonging. Because for every headline that calls him Chelsea's Messi, there's a whisper back home in Franca, he's still our boy, he's still Estêvão. Talent creates moments, but evolution creates players who change the game. For Estêvão Willian, the difference has always been in how he thinks. Behind every touch lies a decision. Behind every run, an equation. At Palmeiras, his football was instinct, pure, explosive, unpredictable. But at Chelsea, under tactical systems designed to dissect opponents rather than dance around them, Estêvão had to evolve. He had to learn patience, to pick his moments, to shift from flair to function, from chaos to calculation. In Brazil, he was the spark. In England, he's learning to be the system. Enzo Maresca didn't just want his dribbling. He wanted his brain. He moved him from the touchline into the half space, where the Premier League's greatest playmakers live. Between lines, between defenders, between breaths. Now, he no longer plays the game. He conducts it. Every feint manipulates defenders. Every pause draws pressure away. He doesn't always look for glory. Sometimes, his genius hides in simplicity. The disguised pass, the delayed release, the self-control rare for a teenager. And it's that control, that maturity, that has coaches talking. But it's not just tactics, it's mentality. Because no matter how dazzling the footwork, the Premier League tests something deeper: resilience. Cold nights, heavy tackles, tactical blocks, the intensity of every match day. And still he adapts, he studies, he listens, he treats mistakes like training clips, moments to refine, not regrets to carry. What separates the good from the great isn't how fast they grow, but how calmly they evolve. Estêvão doesn't chase the spotlight anymore. He's learning how to control it. The streets of Franca taught him courage. Palmeiras taught him rhythm. Chelsea is teaching him structure. And somewhere between those three worlds, he's crafting something football hasn't seen in years. A player with Brazilian flair, European discipline, and mental maturity beyond his age. That's where greatness begins. Even the brightest diamonds need refining, and for Estêvão Willian, as dazzling as he already is, the next phase of his evolution depends not on talent, but on details. Because for all the flair, the balance, the rhythm, football at the top level demands something more brutal: efficiency. At Palmeiras, he could dance around defenders and wait for space. In England, space doesn't wait for you. You have to create it in half a heartbeat. That's where Estêvão still fights the battle between instinct and impact. Analysts say his greatest gift, dribbling, can sometimes be his greatest trap. He loves the duel, he loves the rhythm, but the Premier League punishes hesitation. There are moments when one more feint becomes one too many. His decision-making in the final third, that split-second choice between taking on a man or releasing a teammate, still defines how high his ceiling can rise. Because at 18, Estêvão already has the artistry. What he needs now is ruthlessness. Inside Chelsea's analysis room, they talk about tempo discipline. It's not about slowing down, it's about knowing when to. When to accelerate the play, when to simplify, when to be the dagger instead of the dance. At times, his right foot still betrays him, especially when defenders force him wide. It's not weakness, it's youth. He relies heavily on his left, and that predictability invites double marking. Even Palmeiras' coaches once said, if he sharpens his weaker foot, he'll be unstoppable. Then there's the physical side, the grind that no highlight reel shows. In Brazil, he could glide through tackles. In England, he has to withstand them. Strength in duels, shoulder balance, and endurance across 90 minutes. All still in development, but it's improving. Under Chelsea's conditioning staff, he's already gained muscle mass, learning how to absorb contact without losing fluidity. Not to become bulky, but bulletproof. Tactically, he's learning patience without losing personality. Maresca often reminds him, you don't need to be magic every touch. Sometimes the magic is in control. That's the paradox Estêvão faces. How to keep the street fire alive while mastering the chessboard of modern football. Mentally though, He's exceptional. Those who work with him describe a teenager obsessed with learning. He watches replays of his own games, rewinds moments when he lost possession, asks analysts what he could have done differently. He studies not just Messi or Neymar, but also Bernardo Silva, players who balance chaos with calm. And that's why the flaws don't feel like weaknesses. They feel like unfinished edges. Edges that time, training, and competition will polish. Because Estêvão doesn't need to reinvent himself. He just needs to refine the genius that's already there. Sharpen the decision-making. Balance the flair with final product. Strengthen the right foot. Embrace the physical rhythm of England. Every legend began with imperfections. What separates the special ones is that they turned their weaknesses into weapons. And Estêvão Willian, the boy they once called Messinho, is doing exactly that. Because the best version of Estêvão hasn't arrived yet, but when it does, football might not be ready for it. In a world obsessed with the next big thing, Estêvão Willian has quietly become the now. From the streets of Franca to the roar of West London, his journey is no longer about comparisons. It's about conviction. He's not chasing shadows of Messi or Neymar anymore. He's carving a new silhouette entirely, one stitched in blue and gold. At just 18, he's already scored in the Premier League, debuted for Brazil, and made believers out of skeptics. But what makes him truly rare isn't the numbers, it's the way he carries himself. The balance between boyish joy and surgical precision. He still plays like the street kid who fell in love with the ball, but he thinks like the professional who understands what legacy demands. The future isn't written yet, but if you watch closely, you can almost see it forming. Every flick, every sprint, every assist, another page in a story that feels destined for greatness. For Chelsea, he represents more than a signing. He's a statement, a reminder that beauty still belongs in football. For Brazil, he's the next heartbeat in a rhythm that began with Pelé, evolved through Zico, Ronaldinho, and Neymar, and now echoes through this new generation. And somewhere between Sao Paulo and Stamford Bridge, between the roar of ambition and the silence of preparation, a young man named Estêvão Willian is proving that destiny doesn't wait. It dribbles past you if you're not ready, because every era has its artist, and this one belongs to him.